Whenever you're ready. Okay, you want to stop for 1 second? Hey.
Sure.
Ready? Hi, my name is John Batdorf.
And I'm Michael McLean.
Well, my professional career started in 1971 with the first Batdorf and Rodney record, and we were produced by the president of Atlantic Records, Ahmet Ertegun, and he took us down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and we got to cut with these guys that were fantastic, and they played on everybody's hits back then.
Before I met John Batdorf and we started writing songs together, I had been writing songs by myself for years, and I combined my passion for songwriting with an opportunity to make films. I got a chance to make a Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart called Mr. Krueger's Christmas that I produced, which was seen by, they tell me, 300 million people in 10 languages all over the world.
So I started doing session work, and I'd done a lot of session work, but I was always the guy singing the lead, and this was kind of in a group and then doing solos. I thought, well, you know, I'm a songwriter, and I used to write songs 3.5, 4 minutes. And writing something that was 30 seconds and producing it seems like that would be easy for me. So I made the decision that I would start doing my own production.
After writing songs by myself for years, I meet this guy over the mail.
I met Michael McLean in, I think it was 1990. Just sent out random tapes. We used tapes back then.
He sends me a cassette when I was still kind of overseeing some commercials at Bonneville Media Communications. And this guy sounded great.
He said, you know, I get lots of tapes, but there was something about this tape.
I didn't learn until after I had known him for 2 years that this guy was a big deal. He sang with Motley Crue and Rod Stewart, and was signed by Ahmet Ertegun, who started Atlantic Records.
Got to sing with Donna Summer, got to sing with Dave Mason, got to tour with America, and they did one of my songs.
In fact, it wasn't until we were playing a commercial that I had written that he had produced, and somebody said, "Oh my gosh, it's John Batdorf."
No offense to ad guys, but he wasn't the typical ad guy writing, you know, Barbie commercials. I mean, these were like substance things. I said, this guy really writes great stuff. I had this idea for a song, and it went off in my head, and I just don't, you know, can't you see? I thought, well, it's kind of cool, and I hadn't had a song idea in a while because I hadn't been writing songs.
When John first sent me an idea for a song that he wanted me to write some lyrics to, my initial response was, I'm kind of a singles player. Collaborating, I don't know. I feel like songs have to have the melody and the lyric feel like they're like surgically connected.
I sent him this cassette with me singing the melody and a little track, and the next morning he had faxed me 2 sets of lyrics, and I thought, wow, this guy's on fire, and they were really, really great lyrics.
The best way to describe it was, I thought, I recognize this melody, and I think John is one of the great melodists, one of the great writers ever. But, and I'm not suggesting that the things that I write are what he writes, but it felt like, oh my gosh, I know where this is coming from. And matching a lyric that may come to my head to his melody felt like the process, oddly enough, of the way I had written before, except the melodies were better.
We came to the conclusion that we met over 20 years ago and started writing songs because we were going to make this project one day, and I know it sounds a little odd, but we were writing songs that fit this project so spot on that we think that's the reason. 17 songs that have been written over a 20-year span. I love this record so much and feel so strongly about this record, and I just want to get it out to as many people as we can. The project that we have out now originally started around 10 years ago and was never really meant to be a project at the time. One of my sons was into deep substance abuse, and my wife and I were having a really, really hard time speaking with him. It was out of control. We had to kick him out of the house. And I mean, the communication was just awful.
I was living in California for a while, and John told me about his son and what his son was going through and said, could we write a song that might help him?
I remember as a kid listening to music when I was 15 and 16 because I was on my own with no parents and knew how important music was to me, learning about life and learning about, things that I had no one to mentor me on.
And we talked about all the struggles of being parents and all the things that you worried about. And I hadn't been an addict. I wasn't even as familiar with that whole culture as maybe I could have been. But I had been developing over the years this deep sensitivity that ended up being reflected through the songs. And he said, let's write this.
Not tell him what the song's about, but just play it. And see if this can help maybe open the communication channels again.
You hear the melody of I Don't Always Win, and I remember writing a lyric thinking, what is somebody going through who takes 3 steps forward and 2 steps back or 4 steps back and doesn't think they can make it and feels all alone, like they're all alone. And it was something that was inspired by the melody and all the deep, long talks with my friend. And of course, when you have a great friend, their kids, you sort of adopt, and they're your kids. And so I'm thinking about Matt, and I'm thinking about this melody. And it was as if the lyrics for I Don't Always Win kind of came from another place.
I said, hey, I got this new song, I'd like you to hear it. And there was this kind of light bulb moment in the car. And not that everything was great and, we were out celebrating or anything, but there was just something that happened that seemed to break the ice. And because the lyric of the song is so powerful, which Michael wrote, which is still one of our stronger, powerful songs. And from that point on, it seemed like the barrier had just been broken down a little bit, and it was just like one brick at a time, just tearing it down. And it took some doing. It wasn't just the music, obviously, but the music was part of it. The music was part of the thing that broke the ice and got him maybe thinking about wanting to get straight. And so, in which he is now, which is fantastic.
After John and I wrote I Don't Always Win, and we started thinking about songs that could kind of tie into this process of recovery that his son was going through, we'd have to find in ourselves the truth about that struggle. And then be honest about it. Honest about the hopefulness, honest about the despair, honest about the fear. When John and I had a chance to go sing these 17 songs for the 700 recovering addicts, the joke was, we should call ourselves the Self-Righteous Brothers. When we made this presentation, wondering if we were geezers, but singing these songs that weren't going to be hits on the radio and weren't familiar to them, that they could go, oh, I remember that, sounds great. And simply offering them the fact that they stood in line for just under an hour to say, get this done, I need this. It changes the way you feel about your music. It's so fulfilling to me because I've done just about everything you could possibly do in music, and this is kind of feels like maybe the most important thing I've ever done. You got to understand what a thrill it is for me to recognize that the website you're on right now has been something that we didn't even know we were working towards when we first met 20 years ago. And now to kind of have this aha moment like, oh my gosh, we were meant to write these songs, even when we didn't know what the end result would be. And now we have an opportunity through the website and through the live performances to share songs that have had, the meaning goes so deep in our DNA that it's almost uncomfortable sharing it because here's my heart. This really matters to us.